Cool. Hey guys, what's up? Michael here with ARC, and what we've got today is some of the shelter demos. If you find yourself out in the wild and you need to improvise some kind of shelter because you don't have a store-bought solution, then there's some principles that we want to talk about so that you guys are equipped, and the next time the weather catches you unexpectedly, you know exactly what to do. The first thing is, whenever you're thinking about your shelter site location, is we want to make sure that we're picking a spot that is in alignment with our goal. So if our goal is to stay hidden, then we want to find the hardest to get to, the hardest to find, with the best concealment all the way around it in this drainage where basically it would be impossible to find you. But if your goal is to actually find recovery force, if you're in a survival situation, then you want to be on the most prominent location. You want to have your shelter be part of that ground air signal or a flag waving to friendly forces whenever they may drive, walk, or fly by. So keep that in mind. If you don't care about either of those, then really all we're thinking about here is we want to find a good spot in the woods that's going to be adequate for our shelter needs. One of the things that we need to think about is, if you guys see this trail right through here, this is an active game trail, so we want to make sure that we are keeping our shelter off of that. Any disturbances in the middle of the night, not going to be a good time if there's like an elk herd or a bunch of cows or whatever game is walking this trail right now and they stumble across your tent. It has happened before, don't be that guy. So besides that, we want to make sure that we have something that is got no dead standing trees all the way around it. And really what you guys can do as a quick hack is you can hold your hand up at about a 45-degree angle and then just check mentally anything that is above your hand is above that horizon right there. You can see any trees that look really hazardous, potentially dead and leaning your way. That could be possible deadfall or basically something just bad time waiting to happen. So we want to make sure that there's nothing precarious leaning over us, and then we want to find a spot that is flat and level and has no ant hills, no ground bugs that could be a problem, because especially in the tropics, that is something that we want to get off of whenever possible. But at least do a quick check before you start to build your shelter. So what we have here is an example of something that is not a standard shelter. It's just a long 4x12 sheet of protective material. And so this is maybe something that you scrounge out of the back of your truck, or maybe you find something that you can improvise with. It's just a piece of water resistant material that is standing in here. And so basically what we did is we tied it off in 4 locations on each corner. But before we did that, we actually ran this guideline between these 2 trees. So we have cordage here as taut as we could possibly get it, and we tied it in with a couple of these small sticks so that it's actually integrated into the line itself, so that we can actually tighten that, or if it was a little bit looser, we could loosen that up and we can adjust it as we need to. But this is basically forming the foundation of our shelter. And if we were worried about having something falling on us in the middle of the night, we could even tie a log across these trees so that it would be reinforced, and then anything that came down would actually have some resistance before it crushed our soft, squishy bodies. And then you can see here on the tie-out points, we have this fallen tree right here. So we have one corner tied off to that because it's our station. We had nothing over here, so we drove a stake in the ground. And then also over here, we have another stake and then tied off to a tree root. So whatever is in your environment that is solid, that's secure, you can just go ahead and lash that down. There's a lot of different really good knots that you can use. I use clove hitches, trucker hitches, as well as girth hitches and bowlines. A lot of good knots in here. If you don't know knots, you gotta tie a lot, but if in doubt, just tie it together so it doesn't come undone. It may take a while to get out, but you can always tie something together. All right, and then let's go ahead and come over to this other shelter example really quickly. So here you have an example of what's known as a Ranger diamond. So this is actually constructed out of a military style poncho, and ponchos are extremely versatile because you can use it for yourself whenever you're mobile. It can go over your pack. You can use it as a ground cover. You can use it in a lot of different configurations. Right now, what we have is we tied off the hood so that there's no gaping hole in the center of it. And then first attachment point is right here at this tree, and depending what our goal is, we might have this position a little higher, a little bit lower. If our goal is that we just want to get out of the sun and the heat and we want to have some shade, we'll have it as high as we can and then have good air gaps all the way around. If we're really worried about staying out of the weather and not having the rain and snow on us, then we'll have that a bit lower and we'll have all of our tie down points as close to the ground as possible. I want to show you guys how I tied this off really quickly. To start off with, we have our cordage wrapped around the tree and is simply girth hitched and finished off with a trucker's hitch there. But in the event that you don't have a nice grommet like we have, which is the first attachment point over here after the tree, staked right across diagonally, then we have to get both sides. And as you can see here, we didn't have a stake in the ground. What we actually have is what is called a Deadman. So we have this stick that we have into the earth, and then the earth is covered back up on it, and we can even place something heavy. And this works really, really well whenever you have snow or sand or something that is not going to be really good to hold stakes in. Also, on this other side, let's walk around here really quick. You can see we had another attachment point that we just found here in nature, but instead of using a grommet, what we can use is pull some of this together, put it on the underside, form what is called a button, and then just simply do a slip loop over that, and that becomes its own attachment point. You guys can do this with any kind of material that you have, be it garbage bag, plastic that you find, any kind of old tarp, anything that is going to be somewhat water resistant. You can use that button if you don't have grommets. And then at the center, it was kind of not as tight as I'd like to see it, so I use this trick where go simply from attachment point here with a slip loop up over to just a freestanding stick down to another attachment point, maybe a stake, whatever you have, or you can tie it up to a tree if you have a tree limb or something overhanging. The point being here is that we want to have this as tight as possible, so we have good angles. It has a good pitch to it so that the water is going to run off of it. And really, this is the bare minimum of what we're looking for in terms of angle and steepness. You want to have a good 30 to 45 degrees or steeper, maybe even 60-degree angle as much as possible, so whenever that rain hits it, it beads off and it doesn't soak up, create a pool in the center, and then wake you up at 2 in the morning because it's dripping on you. So these are some really good principles. And then over here, this being more in line with kind of an emergency shelter, if you guys have some kind of system like this, which is basically a tarp that is married up with the same idea as your what's it called, emergency blanket, right?
A bivy.
Yeah, so essentially it's an emergency blanket that is also a tarp. So we again ran a string or guideline between these two trees, and then used that as the peak of our tent, tied it down in 4 places. And so very, very quickly, very simply, that was the material we had. We were also creating signal out of this. If we really wanted to reflect heat, we would actually turn it the other way, so we're getting that heat radiating back to us, keeping us warmer. But these are all just different examples. There's a lot of different designs out there, guys. You can get really, really artistic, or you can make it really stupid simple, but it doesn't take much. Part of your shelter system should be something to sleep in, something to sleep on, something to sleep under. And so far we just saw 3 examples of things that you can sleep under. Always we want to have good pitch, good tightness, and we just tie it off to whatever we have with using whatever materials we have. If we don't have a good tie off point, we can create one with a button. Again, if you want to know good knots, you gotta tie a lot. And so this is part of your improvising with whatever you have to make adequate shelter for yourself.